This episode is brought to you by DistroKid. Hey, have you heard? I'm coming back to give guided tours at the Punk Rock Museum in Las Vegas, Friday, May 2nd, Saturday, May 3rd, and Sunday, May 4th. 2 tours each day, one at 12:30 p.m. and one at 4 p.m. Get your tickets now at thepunkrockmuseum.com. The Punk Rock Museum, where you can expect the unexpected. Like the time I saw Fletcher from Pennywise and Noodles from The Offspring randomly hanging out on a Tuesday afternoon. Or Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers having a casual stroll through. Or the time myself and a group walked around the corner to find Fat Mike grilling a married couple about their, never mind. Join me Cinco de Mayo weekend, May 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, as I guide you through 5 decades of punk rock memorabilia, flyers, musical instruments, stage gear, outfits, literature, and so much more. Tickets available now at thepunkrockmuseum.com. Hey everyone, today's guest is Dani Filth, lead vocalist for the Suffolk, England extreme metal band Cradle of Filth. Together we break down the writing, recording, and inspiration behind the hit single, Nymphetamine Fix, taken from their 2004 album, Nymphetamine. This song is epic. It is what I would refer to as cinematic metal, with each part of the song acting as a passage. It's 5 minutes of twists and turns with a monster sound. The production is huge and handled by Rob Caggiano, who has played with both Anthrax and Volbeat, as well as producing chart-topping records. Vocalist Liv Kristine of the band Leaves Eyes provides guest vocals on this track, with both her and Dani trading off verses, providing the protagonist-antagonist yin and yang. And the lyrics? Well, let's just say I was surprised by how well crafted they are. Once again, proving that those metal guys are smarter than they're given credit for. So for all this and a story about magic mushrooms, don't you dare go anywhere.
Hey, have you heard? Krista makes a podcast. Hey, have you heard? Krista makes a podcast. Hey, have you heard? Krista makes a podcast. Hey, have you heard? Krista makes a podcast.
Dani, how's it going?
Greetings, yeah, it's all good. Very nice spring day here in England, the very first.
I was going to say there is a lot of sun coming through that window, and it would be about 4 p.m. your time over there right now in the afternoon.
Yeah, that's right.
Good deal. So you're enjoying an odd sunshiny day over in England. You guys are from Suffolk, which is kind of halfway between London and Norwich. You're out in the boondocks.
Yeah. Between London and nowhere. It's only me and Ed Sheeran live here.
Oh, Ed lives there.
And the darkness as well.
I love that. Well, in preparing for this episode, I was kind of thinking, or kind of feeling like you guys are like one of the newer metal bands, but you've been around since '94. You're not new anymore. I mean, and I don't even really know where I would pigeonhole you in. I mean, especially your sound. I mean, I know your sound's evolved over the years, but I was telling you before we started rolling here that we're close in age, and I'm a metalhead at heart. I was in a punk band, but if I had it my way, I probably would have been in a metal band. But I went to your page, and it's brilliant. You list pretty much anything and everything you'd ever want to know about yourself there, so that the dumb journalists who interview you probably don't ask you the same stupid questions, which they probably still do. But I was reading through your lists of likes and bands and favorite records, and man, we share a lot of the same. And you had listed, I believe, like Merciful Fate and King Diamond. I hear Maiden, I hear Tin Lizzy, I hear UFO with the dual guitars, but I also hear this big theatrical production that's melded, particularly with this song. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. I hate to say that we cherry pick, but yeah, we do draw influence from quite a few things, and also having keyboards and orchestration as well. Kind of makes it a bit more cinematic.
Sure. Yeah, and a lot of bands have tended to do that over the years, but Cradle of Filth has certainly stood the test of time. You guys are still out there year after year playing all the festivals, and you have a ton of amazing albums and material. What is it about Nymphetamine, you think, Nymphetamine Fix, that just kind of rose to the top and became your signature track?
I don't know. It was the right place at the right time, I guess. You know what, record companies are very fickle like that, that as soon as you have any degree of success, they try to emulate it. And then it's a bit contrived, and, you know, things either happen or they don't, you know. And if you go out of the way, which they did, trying to get us to do something of a similar context later. But lightning doesn't really strike twice very often. So I would just say, I mean, it's a very catchy song anyway, and on a catchy album. And we were at our sort of, I'd say we were hitting a zenith at that point, as we'd just been on Sony, and only left Sony by default because we'd signed with them. And as with most major corporate record labels, the person that signed us was reassigned to Peru or something like that.
Surprise.
And then the next person that took over were like, who the hell are these people? You know, I'm used to dealing with Jamiroquai. So we just walked off Sony and went to Roadrunner. So it was a very prolific, you know, just headlined the Beast stage in the American Ozfest around that time. So it was all go in the Cradle camp. So there were more eyes on the song as well. We knew it was a really big song when it happened, but I didn't quite foretell that I'd still be playing it live, you know, another 15 years later.
Well, that probably would have been one of my questions today was, did you ever think, because we write these songs, and I always say once we write them, they're not ours anymore. They go out into the world, and sometimes the fans latch onto them and sometimes they don't. We've all written that song. We're in the rehearsal spot. We're like, I can't wait to get out and play this one live. And it just falls on dead ears. And then you play the track that you didn't think that was even going to maybe make the record, and it becomes one of your signature songs. I want to talk about Liv Kristine for a moment. She was the vocalist for the band Leaves' Eyes. She was formerly...
Was the vocalist.
Correct. Yeah. She was in Leaves' Eyes, and she also sang for Theater of Tragedy. Did you know her prior to this collaboration?
No, she was just, we tried a few people actually, like 4 or 5 different people, and I think hers just spoke to us a bit more. She just had a better understanding of the part, and it was a bit more ad-libby than the others, so it didn't sound so forced. And plus, at the time, her partner was, whom I'm good friends with actually still, Alex. He had his own still has his own studio, but he was recording it, and it was just easier.
Was the song written in mind, we want to feature a female vocalist along with you doing sort of a duet, or, double question, were the parts already written before Liv came in?
Yeah, the part was written. In fact, I had a sort of a eureka moment with that, because originally it's part of a bigger song. It's like a triptych. You imagine the song, but with 2 folded wings. And obviously we just used the middle part as a single, because with the folded wings, the extra parts, it rose to about, 10 minutes long. So that's why it's called Nymphetamine Overdose, because it was like another, you've heard the song for the second time by the time you got the edit. So originally, the song was a lot quicker, and the timing was twice the tempo. And then I was just like, this is a bit much. It sounded good when it was a normal speed, but our drummer was speeding it up, as he's one, it always is. And then it just sounded ridiculous. So I was sitting there one day going, what the hell are we going to do with this? And I just cut a couple of words out, and then just literally had the same bar, but dragged over 2 bars as opposed to the one. And then it just clicked.
Okay, because this is a big song, and we're going to comb through it here in a minute. It's 5 minutes and 2 seconds. There's a lot of moving pieces within this. And before we get there, I want to talk a little bit about producer Rob Caggiano. Rob, I've loved his productions. I've known him, not him personally, but I've known his productions. Of course, I was aware of him when he played in Anthrax back in the 90s. He did a stint in the band Volbeat as well. I think this track sounds amazing. How was it working with Rob?
Well, it's cool. I'm still working with Rob. We're still finishing our Temple of the Black Moon album that we started pretty much about the same time as this song.
Okay. Because I noticed he did the record after this one as well.
Yeah, absolutely. He started out on Damnation in a Day as part of Scrap 60, which was him and a couple of partners. And then eventually we just invited him back. Yeah, no, he's been my friend ever since those 3 albums. And yeah, I'm going back to see him actually in April in La La Land.
Gotcha. Yeah, I've never really envied guys like Rob Caggiano. It's like he can be the rock star, but he's such a great producer. It's like, where do I go? Do I follow the money?
He's worked with some really unusual people since leaving Volbeat. I mean, when I say unusual, not unusual, massive. I mean, he did the Wicked Wisdom album, so he was hanging out with Will Smith for a bit. And kind of used in Anthrax, but he's done Bruce Springsteen, Brian Johnson. Yeah, he's done some really big stuff of late.
Yeah, I mean, this production sounds massive. Was this your first time working with him? Was this record, or did he start the record before, you said?
Yeah, you know, he did the record before. But
he did the record before. Okay, so you kind of knew going into this. Did this song in particular, did you talk about the production, or did you just start laying down tracks and building, or did you have kind of obviously you had an idea going in, but did you try to relay what you were feeling sonically to Rob?
Yeah, well, kind of. It's hard to remember, to be honest. You're talking about 2004, 2003, 2004.
Yep, we're going back 22 years.
Well, yeah, and things were, if you look at the time span back then, like between, I think it was 98 or 96 and 2006, we did 1, 2, 3, 4, something like 6 records.
Yeah, and like EPs in there as well. It was crazy.
Yeah, and I remember for this album in particular, I mean, we'd come back from a tour with Typo supporting us and Moonspell. And I think we picked up a bit of Moonspell and a bit of Typo that sort of went into the ingredients for making this record. And then we had this bright idea of, it was a good idea because for the previous albums, we've been down to near Rockfield at the base of Wales and taken this big house, which was a studio. In fact, Oasis recorded there, and it was all the house had fallen a bit into ruin, and they were kind of doing it up. So we were allowed to stay there for cheap and using the it was called Millbrook, and yeah, a very big studio, like a sister ship to Rockfield. Apparently, 2 brothers owned both of them, and so we went down there for like 2 weeks. It was kind of like a holiday, but we said when we go in there, we'll have all our ideas, and when we come out, we'll have an album, and we did. And the reason the thing was, it was about getting away together, and you know, like a sort of team building event. If we're all here and we've all got rooms, and everybody can set up one studio there. We've got the main studio where we can all, you know, actually play the ideas. And but the main reason for going there was because at the time everybody had girlfriends, and it was all getting a bit, you know, like we need to be somewhere far enough away that the girlfriends can't hassle us. We need a bit of time away, just the band. And so we decided to go to Wales, which was the opposite side of England.
Yeah, we don't talk about that too much on this podcast. That's a great point. And it sounds almost kind of mean and selfish. Like we wanted to get away from the girlfriends, but it's so important. It could be anything. Like now I have kids. Like I can't record in my hometown. You know, there's a dentist appointment. There's something that comes up. You have to go get creative somewhere else sometimes.
Yeah. We just had to be. Yeah, we had to break away.
Yeah,
it was a holiday as well. It was really good fun. But yeah, very creative. It was autumn. Yeah, just the beginning of autumn, like beginning of September, we were writing, and I think at least 2 days into it, went for a walk and discovered a big selection of magic mushrooms on the field, which helped as well.
So that kind of bled into Nymphetamine Fix somewhere, maybe.
Yeah, probably.
Right on. Well, we're going to get into the song right now, Dani. This song's 5 minutes and 2 seconds. The intro is like male and female choir voices for like 8 bars. It sounds theatric. It sounds medieval. It sounds suspenseful. Was that a mix of voices and synths at the top? I couldn't tell if it was just voices, synths, or both.
I think it's a mixture of both, yeah.
It is. Okay. And I had mentioned before, just now theater, and your productions live are amazing. And this song, when I close my eyes, listen to it, I see it in different sections, like movements almost in a play. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But this just sets off the tone right here with these voices. This is followed by 16 bars of really big stereo guitars playing these wrung out strummed chords, drums, bass, and a keyboard arpeggiated hook. Very horror movie-esque, almost toy piano sounding with this. Conjures up images of Halloween and some of those types of movies. That hook for this song, did you come up with that hook?
No, I didn't. No.
Okay.
No, I'm a vocalist. I just hang around with musicians.
Well, that's funny you say that, and I kind of read something of a quote with that about you. But I do know a lot of times vocalists, they might not play an instrument at all, but they can hear things. And that's why I asked how much of these extra parts you're hearing, or do you leave that up to the band?
Well, I'm usually there. I'm like a stalwart companion during mixing. Like, people may come and go, but I'm there pretty much all the way through.
Gotcha.
And so it's always, as you probably know, when you're in the studio and by the time you get to like mid-mix, you're fiddling around with the songs, you're changing ideas, you might, well, especially now, we would be like, you know what, I think this could be 2 bars longer, or I think this needs an arpeggio here, and then things get just manipulated.
Right.
Tweaked is a better word.
Yeah. I love this hook because on its own, that keyboard part, if you were to take it out of context with everything else that's going on, it doesn't sound that sinister or scary. But for whatever reason, when you put it over into the production, it is great. I love it. On bars 8 through 16, another synth comes in playing these big sweeping pads right as we get into verse 1. This verse 1 is sung by Liv Kristine. The instrumentation from the intro continues into verse 1. The vocal, however, essentially takes over for that intro keyboard hook. The vocals are doubled here in verse 1.
To the river, midsummer highway, a reed of black swans on with hope to the grave. Through red September, the sky's fire pain. I beg to appear like the fawn for the Holy One.
Led to the river, midsummer I wave, a V of black swans, on with hope to the grave. And through red September, when skies fire paved, I beg you appear like a thorn for the holy ones.
Well, you've got someone dreaming of a person, a wishful thinking, maybe praying for, maybe it's a loved one that is far away. Maybe it's an imaginary person, a muse. It doesn't really matter. It's all circumstantial. I think, and it's hard to say because, again, a few years have passed since its inception. I was driving at the thought of something so insatiable and so dominating and irresistible that it was like a drug, a person like a drug, and it was craved after. And in the latter half of the year, theoretically and metaphorically, you're heading toward autumn, decay, whatever, losing hope, and you're wishing for this person to appear. You can even read into it as if it was like a midlife crisis, begging for that one true person, to come into your life in the autumn of your years. I always write my lyrics so that people can interpret them. When I first got into metal, which I've always viewed as escapism, the first thing that really attracted me to it was just the album, just seeing the album covers, firstly, before everything. And between that and the lyrics and the music, I concocted a whole visual. And half the time, especially back in the day, in the mid-'80s, you'd buy import thrash records, and being import, they they probably forgot to put the lyric sheet in, or they just didn't come with one. And then you'd have to try and fill the gaps in yourself. So I'd misinterpret. And since then, like a lot of my favorite old punk records, especially, I'd look online and see what the lyrics actually were, and I'd be like, fuck, they're so different. I thought this song was about Africa. And you know what I mean? It's and I enjoyed the culmination of all those, that ideology, all those ideas, the cover, the music, you know, the musicianship, what I thought were the lyrics, and I had a viewpoint of it. And that's how I write my lyrics. I like them to be layered. I like people reading into them and doing a bit of investigative journalism on them, or them just twisting them to their own accord. I was talking about the new album, which I've been doing a lot of lately, and a lot of people, some of the bigger fans who have interviewed me, I mean, like, they don't pose a question, they answer it before you've actually had your turn at it by saying what they think the song's about. And half the time I've just gone, yeah.
if that's what you think.
Yeah.
No, well, I appreciate you going kind of expounding on that a little bit, because when I asked you that, you know, I've had artists that some of them regarded about their lyrics. Not many. A lot of them want to tell you what's going on here behind the story. But it's funny how we were pegged as the stupid kids in school, the metalheads and the musicians. When in fact, if you go read some of the lyrics from metal musicians, there's some of the most thought provoking lyrics you could ever read.
Actually, no, I was a prefect at Hogwarts.
Yeah. Love it. Well, verse 2 comes right off of verse 1. On the last line of verse 1, though, like a thorn for the holy ones, there's this, I don't know if it's your voice, a growly voice, or synth, or a combination of both. It creeps up. It's very robotic there. Is that demonic sound that I hear later that comes in? That
I think so. I don't have the song in front of me. The ironic thing about this song is, well, with all our songs, is that as soon as I finish an album, I work on it to death. And as I said, I'm there throughout the mix, and I'll be listening. I'll take every mix home and listen to it that evening, or whatever. So by the time the album's been delivered to the record company, I'm sick of it.
Right.
And so I don't listen to it again. And this time we delivered our new album last June. And we've been very prolific in the live circuit. So we've been Australia, full European tour, blah, 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 blah. And then having to revisit the album for the release of it. So I've had to have a second wind at listening to a record. But normally I kind of listen to it to death and then never listen to it again unless I'm called upon to say, okay, well, we're playing this song from it, that song and that song. I don't know why. It's just I'm always in the creative mode. So I'm always like, okay, that's been put to pasture. Now let's move on to the new one.
Sure. And I can fully relate to that. If I had to go on my own podcast for a song I wrote 20 years ago, I'd have to probably listen to the song.
I can tell you for one thing, there's a whenever I hear that intro that you talk of, I like literally have this sinking feeling because, and not in a bad way. Well, it is a bad way. It's a terrible way. But the reason is because it's usually the first thing they start a sound check with. And hearing that song, like either being played prior where everybody's backstage and it means, oh, fuck, it's sound check. Or it means, oh, fuck, it's sound check and I'm about 15 minutes late. That's why every time I hear that, I go, oh, shit, no.
Yeah. So you definitely don't want to hear it when you're off the road. I get it.
No,
I definitely get it. Well, we're into verse 2. I love verse 2. We get a dual guitar lead panned left and right. These are Dani's vocals here. The vocals are doubled, possibly tripled or quadrupled. There's a lot of layers here with the vocal production.
Was my soul, untold was the pain I faced when you left me a rose in the rains of my sport and sound that never been changed, but your darkness of faith be pushed through my veins again.
Cold was my soul, untold was the pain I faced when you left me, a rose in the rain. So I swore to the razor that never enchained would your dark nails of faith be pushed through my veins again.
Yeah, obviously religious connotations there, but the whole thing is like a religious experience with a partner. I'm not going to say, well, I wrote it as a woman. Obviously, Nymphet
Yes.
is based on a woman. Probably an ideal woman. Think Monica Bellucci or someone like that. And then you'll be in the right ballpark. But no, on a serious note, it's nymphetamine is it's like a drug and a poison, one that can't be lived without. And so it's almost begging for I've admitted the problem. I've said there's a problem. I'm acknowledging the fact that you are poisonous to me, or the person is poisonous, but I can't get enough of it. Like too much chocolate, I guess. I think that really runs concurrent throughout the whole song, is just the feeling of absolute desperation, which would imply that you're an addict, and hence the marriage of the two words, amphetamine and nymph. It's like a seriously addictive woman that you've been either betrayed by, or just out of reach, or you put on a pedestal like Christ, hence the religious connotations.
Well, on the back half of verse 2, when you say, so I swore to the razor, when you go to that lyric, this is what I call the exorcist effect. It's that... I can't explain it. I don't know how. I believe it's part your voice, but it's ran through some kind of vocal effect. I don't know how else to explain it besides saying it's the Exorcist Linda Blair effect. Do you know what I'm referring to?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes it just happens with amalgam of different voices. You get like a I'd say happy middle ground is probably not the right way to say it.
No, I love that vocal effect. Anytime I hear it, and it doesn't matter. It could be on a Deicide record or Flesh God Apocalypse. I hear that and I just it scares me. It sounds just, from the absolute depths of hell. There's also a choral chant of male and female voices running underneath the vocal here. I'm assuming all of that stuff, after you had the bed tracks done, the lead vocals done, then you came in and did that orchestration. Is that correct?
I think so.
Were those voices for the choral parts, were those outside of the band or band members mixed with other people?
I think it was a mixture of everything. I think there may have even been her voice as well mixed down into that. We'd actually learned a lot, because on the previous record we took Sony's money and we went to Budapest and we recorded with 101 piece orchestra and their national radio choir, and obviously that's a one-off. You don't do that every record. I mean, that was expensive and
sure.
Great fun. That sounded amazing, blah blah blah. But we learned a lot of techniques from that on how professional choirs, ones that work for TV and film, how they break down, because they may only be, they're pretty big, but like I say, the 101 piece orchestra, but the choir, I think, was probably only about 24, 25 people. They'd record them and they'd layer them. And then, there'd be a mixture between all the different heights, baritone.
Yeah, it's got this, it's somewhere between like a church and a Gregorian chant. It's kind of haunting. I will tell you what's really interesting, and I'm going back to Rob Caggiano and his mixes, is how loud it is sitting with the lead vocal, but it doesn't rub the lead vocal. I can't talk about this mix enough. I think it's fantastic.
Probably because I remember when we were recording it, and I just bought a new car. It was a sports car, and I was quite proud of it, very proud of it. Not just quite proud, very proud of it. And then we'd sit in it and had a really great stereo. And Rob would always take the mix for stuff. And we'd go outside and we'd sit in the dark. It's the middle of the countryside, beautiful place. Absolutely loved it. It was like being on a holiday. And Rob loved this studio as well. Henceforth, we did 3 albums there.
Yeah.
So anyway, we'd sit in the car and he'd just we'd crank it up so loud. And then he'd reduce it and we'd just get like all these different levels, and we'd learn how to break it down like that. And then we'd take it somewhere else to learn, just get accustomed to just the sonic differences between listening. Because we were trying to fathom, where do people listen to it and where are the focal points of that listening? And we were just trying, looking at it in a scientific way, if that can be.
Mm-hmm.
And then we would sit in the car and he'd just crank the
Well, it can. And I mean, most people, I mean, at least 20 years ago, listened to their music in cars. I mean, they got AirPods and everything else. People listen to music all different ways. But that's definitely, I think, leaning with your best foot forward, especially with a type of production like this that's so big.
Hey, everybody. We'll be right back with lots more with Dani Filth after a few words from our sponsors.
Looking to elevate your music career? DistroKid is a digital music distribution service that enables musicians to distribute their music to online stores and streaming platforms such as Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music, Amazon, Tidal, and many more. DistroKid collects earnings and payments, sending them to you, the artist. With DistroKid, artists unlock a world of possibilities. From easily paying collaborators with splits to securing your music with DistroLock, DistroKid covers all bases. Plus, you can promote your releases with Hyperfollow and create eye-catching visuals with a Spotify Canvas generator, all for free. But that's not all. Introducing the DistroKid app, now available on iOS and Android. Artists can manage their releases, view streaming stats, and withdraw earnings, all from the palm of their hand. And for those looking to perfect their sound, check out Mixia. With its simple interface and customizable mastering options, artists can make their music sound polished and professional within minutes. And don't forget about Instant Share, DistroKid's newest feature. Share large files securely with collaborators, producers, and more, ensuring your music streams at the highest quality. Ready to take your music to the next level? Download the DistroKid app and explore their suite of tools today. Plus, listeners can enjoy 30% off their first year by visiting distrokid.com/VIP/DeMakes. That's distrokid.com/VIP/DeMakes.
When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, like Skims or Allbirds, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and great marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business, making selling and for shoppers buying simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. It's home of ShopPay, the #1 checkout in the world. You can use it to boost conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going through to checkout. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout Allbirds uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/income.
The NBA playoffs are here, and I'm getting my bets in on FanDuel. Talk to me, Chuck GPT. What do you know?
All sorts of interesting stuff, even Charles Barkley's greatest fear.
Hey, nobody needs to know that.
New customers bet $5 to get $250 in bonus bets if you win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
21 plus and present in Virginia. Must be first online real money wager. $5 deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expires 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See full terms at FanDuel.com/sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Hey there, travelers. Kaylee Cuoco here. Sorry to interrupt your music, great artist BT Dubs, but wouldn't you rather be there to hear it live? With Priceline, you can get out of your dreams and into your dream concert. They've got millions of travel deals to get you to that festival, gig, rave, sound bath, or sonic experience you've been dreaming of. Download the Priceline app today, and you can save up to 60% off hotels and up to 50% off flights. So don't just dream about that trip. Book it with Priceline.
Go to your happy price, Priceline.
You may get a little excited when you shop at Burlington.
What a low price! You see that? They have my favorite brand! It's like a whole new Burlington! I can buy two!
I'm saving so much! Yeah!
Burlington saves you up to 60% off other retailers' prices every day. Will it be the low prices or the great brands? You'll love the deals. You'll love Burlington. I told you so.
I don't think it overstates things to say that the Beatles were the greatest gift to entertainment and culture of our time. A secular religion, if you will, with their universal appeal and demonstrable impact on people's lives. I'm Robert Rodriguez, host of Something About the Beatles. With every episode, I speak with historians, musicians, artists, and Beatle witnesses, all in the service of fresh insights into the most joyous cultural entity the world has ever known. I hope you'll join me and listen to Something About the Beatles, now on Evergreen and wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey everyone, DeMakes here, and I've got some exciting news. DeMakes a Podcast is now on Patreon. Your support is what keeps this show going, allowing us to bring you deep dives into amazing songs from incredible artists every week. When you join our Patreon at DeMakes.com, you'll get instant access to hundreds of episodes of The After Party, our weekly bonus show where producer Chris Fafalius and I talk music history, trivia, tour stories, classic albums, and whatever else comes to mind. Plus, you'll get early ad-free episodes of DeMakes a Podcast, unedited video versions of each episode, and, of course, a brand new episode of The After Party every single week. If our show brings you a little joy, help us keep it going strong for just a couple bucks a month at DeMakes.com. Not ready to commit? No problem. You can sign up for a free membership while you decide. Thanks so much, everyone, and I hope to see you all at The After Party.
And now, back to the show.
Pre-chorus 1, we get what I'm calling a scene change here. The whole mood switches here. We get Liv Kristine's vocal coming back in. The drums get super heavy here, along with the bass guitar. The stereo guitars are palm muted and really heavy. That choral of vocals is running underneath the lead vocal. These are also double unison vocals here. Bard on your tomb, I am a prayer for your loneliness, and would you ever soon come above unto me? For once upon a time, from the binds of your loneliness, I could always find the right slot for your sacred key.
Of course, yeah, well, this is the protagonist of the piece. This is the person that's either been summoned or asked for or envisaged, because it may not be a real person at all. And in response to, I often liken it, because it is called a response, as like a mythical creature, like a siren, for example, very dangerous, and you're flirting with danger. You know, this isn't a good thing to be doing. I'm going to end up having a watery grave here, but you've been bewitched, essentially. And this call and response is sort of like she's not distancing herself from the author at all. She's saying, "Remember the great time we had. I'm perfect for you." And yeah, essentially that's that. She's enticing him to manipulating him.
Yeah, especially that last line, the right slot for your sacred key.
Oh, he said slut. She's right. God, she's the right
slot. Yeah, I gotta get my American slot. Yeah, gotta really over enunciate that. On the back half here, for once upon a time, all the way to that ending lyric there, sacred key. There are a mixture of, it's another voice that comes in, a mixture of harmonies and unison, and a guitar panned off right is playing along with the vocal melody in, I put loose unison, but this guitar comes in that's playing along with what Liv is singing there. It's super cool, and it's such a simple idea that it gets overthought sometimes. It's like, that's easy, one of the easiest tricks in the book, but it's so effective there when that guitar comes in.
There's a bit of a change of pace as well on the drums.
Yeah,
I mean, it does it fast. I mean, the other one was twice as fast as the original version. So with it having a little bit more restraint, and the fact the song's quite slow and waltzy anyway, it sounds like it kicks off, but it's, actually isn't that quick at all.
It's not, but what's interesting, and I'm glad you said that, Dani, because we're at chorus 1 now. You're right, the song isn't that fast, but my gosh, when we get to the chorus, it feels like you're moving. It kind of feels like it's pushed like a chorus of a Metallica track, like a big rock track, and I absolutely love it. Drums, bass, guitar, synths, and stereo guitar, left and right, are playing these killer counter melodies to the lead vocal. The bass guitar is nice and crisp in this chorus. And I wrote it here, man. This chorus is just driving. Something about the way that it's laying, where the hi-hat sits. It is awesome. "6 feet deep is the incision. In my heart, that barless prison. Discolors all with tunnel vision. Sunsetter, nymphetamine. Sick and weak from my condition. This lust, this vampiric addiction. To her alone in full submission. None better, nymphetamine."
Yeah, it rhymes.
Well, these lyrics are definitely hitting me more now when I know the backstory, because it's kind of, these lyrics are, to me at least, on the surface, a little bit obtuse. You know, you don't really know what's going on with a songwriter, and you unpacked it here for me, but there's some really, really cool imagery here in the chorus. On the back half, the guitar panned off right breaks off into a harmony solo there in the chorus. Sunsetter here is whispered, and that demonic vocal, I'm calling it, comes in on nymphetamine, and we get whispered on the lyric "none better" in the back half. How do you discern or decide when that happens? Is that all you, or do you take suggestions from Rob sometimes, like, hey man, maybe whisper this part for drama?
Well, we currently have a producer that we've worked, called Scott Atkins, who we've worked with probably the last 6 records. And like I say, I am working with Rob on a separate thing. So I'm recording with, so I'm still fully aware of how Rob works, but it mirrors the way that a good producer works, as in our new one as well, is that the reason why we've been using him a lot is not only because he's local, he's a good friend, you begin to trust him with some of the, because it's a personal thing, making music, and especially vocalizing and trying out things, you know, it can get kind of weird. And also, they're good to steer the ship. Rob's good steering the ship as well. So basically, it's like when you're in the studio and you're recording, you experiment and you try different things and you throw things at the wall that may not stick. Sometimes, not all the time. Sometimes you've got it, you've demoed it and you worked it all out and it's fine. But other times, the producer will just go, you know what? Contrary to belief, I don't think that's very good. So let's try something completely off the wall. And also, there's consideration of where you are in the song. Sometimes the song demands to be a bit more reserved because you're building up and you don't want to, like, I don't know, you don't want to shoot your load all in the first half of the song, do you? Because there's no payoff toward the back end. So, you know, it's all, again, circumstantial, dependent on the mood, where the track's going. What we do is quite cinematic. And you mentioned that before with, you know, the layered,
sure,
you know, chords and vocal effects and just backing vocals and choir, etc., etc. So you've got to be clever with how you do it, because you're basically creating a story and you want it to flow and ebb and you know, swell and tumult.
The reason I asked that, I don't even know if I've ever really whispered in one of my band's songs. And, you know, you
just haven't lived, have you?
That's what I'm going to say. I haven't lived. No, but what I'm getting at is that I have my go-to vocal things that I do. We all do as performers. As a guitarist, I have my go-to things, and my band will call me out on it sometimes. They'll say, hey man, you're doing your thing again. Okay, not in this song, you know? So you have to pick your spots, and that's why I asked, you know, you pretty much answered the question. It's a song by song basis, and you have to pick your spots. The next part, I'm calling in the post-chorus, one of the probably heaviest parts of the song, super heavy drums are playing double bass. That adds to just how heavy this part is. Big chugging stereo guitars, bass guitar, those choral vocals from the top, and the synths. Tons of production here. We're also getting these, when you say nymphetamine, we get this that you're saying with a splash cymbal, if you know what I'm talking about. And that is so cool. There's so much room on that splash when it happens with the there. It's just another a great hook within the song here. Nymphetamine girl. Nymphetamine, my nymphetamine girl. Good rhyme there again.
It took me a while. I had to go away and muse against a solitary poetic tree to come up with that.
I was going to say, had to take a walk out in the country where you were recording to come up with that. This next part's great, Dani, because to me, this is the intermission before the back half of the play. That's what this part makes me feel like when I hear it. And it's just the keyboard, arpeggiated hook from the top, and these crazy layered whispered vocals that are swirling left to right. Racked with your charm, I'm circled like prey. Back in the forest, where whispers persuade. More sugar trails, more white lady laid than pillars of salt. And again, this part is the reintro. It just feels like this intermission before we start the back half of the tune on salt. The last word you say here. Some really cool production things with the vocals, just hammering, ping-pong, and back and forth, left and right. What's happening here lyrically?
Funny enough, none of this is really we do live. This part's kind of just left to go very, very subtle and as a sort of release. Yeah, and it's contrary to because when the next pattern comes in, it's completely different. So it couldn't have worked any more than just being creepy whisper, because it would have would have contrasted too much. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah. And now that you say it, this part does kind of let you breathe here for a second, and I could see why you don't put the whisper in live. Just leave it alone.
Well, it's creepy. It solidifies the fairy tale-esque nature of the lyricism. Mentioned the forest and sugar trails as if it was the witch in the gingerbread house, and Hansel. It's an analogy and metaphors for drug taking. White lady, pillars of salt.
Okay.
Biblical terminology as well, just all sort of mixed around and heated up in a heroin spoon.
Okay. Well, and I did read through some of that within the lyrics, but I didn't want to assume. A lot of times we'll put references in that have nothing to do. You want to provoke thought.
It's all just going back to the fact that this person is irrefutably poisonous, but absolutely irresistible. It's that dichotomy, of just, like everybody has it. It could be a euphemism for alcohol. It could be a euphemism for drugs.
Sure.
Euphemism for sex, which essentially it's all three. Or just love, a misguided love, desire, overboard desire, of course.
Gotcha. Well, verse 3 features both Liv and yourself. Liv takes over or starts out the first half. You take over on the second half. Here in verse 3, the guitar hooks are now present left and right. These were absent on verse 1, not coming in until verse 2. On the back half, when Dani comes in, the choir also comes in as well. And those guitars left and right continue soloing away. fall to my arms, hold their mesmeric sway, and dance out to the moon, as we did in those golden days. And then Dani's vocal. Christening stars, I remember the way. We were needle and spoon, mislaid in the burning hay.
Going back to the whole premise of it being in the sort of autumn of one's life or one's relationship, it's kind of referring back to sort of late summer, the drug thing again. And again, she said how great our relationship once was, you know, the golden days, etc. Yeah, he's falling. It seems like the narrator of the piece is falling for her charms once again. She's like irresistible.
I love it. It's so cool. You know, you have to write a lot of lyrics being in a metal band too. So you get to verse 3 here, and I'm sure there's some times where you're like, well, I'm just going to repeat the first verse, or it's going to be this, and the producer's going, Or do you always want more information as a lyricist, especially with this kind of music?
Yeah. You know what? I was going to mention something because it just reminded me of that you probably played with the band Bad Religion so many times.
Oh yeah,
and Greg's lyrics were always profoundly interesting to me. I mentioned it because Bad Religion are one of my favourite bands, and it's all full of metaphors and analogies. And for a little while, you could actually listen to it, and like No Control, for example, without even thinking about what it relates to, you know. And generally, it's about bad things in society, political unrest. I mean, he's going to have a field day with the Trump inauguration, isn't it? But the way he writes, it's so metaphorical. It's so like painting a almost a fairy tale picture, and you have to read in between the lines to realize it's like a cutesy way of doing it. It's something very appealing to me. I love it. Very colourful. Like, and he cross references a lot of Americana as well, you know, authors and situations.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just thought that would be a good thing to mention because, obviously I have people I admire, vocalists and lyricists, and I put Greg Graffin right up there, to be honest.
That's great. I'm glad you mentioned that. I've had Brett Gurewitz on the show, and both him and Greg are just such great songwriters. And as you said, or I saw it on your page, your list of your likes, Bad Religion jumped out at me. I'm like, I doesn't surprise me that you love their lyrics, which are absolutely awesome. Coming out of verse 3, we get into pre-chorus 2. It's the same overall instrumentation and lyrics as pre-chorus 1. This goes back to what we were just talking about. I don't think you could hit him with any more lyrics at this point. You got to give him the pre-chorus again with the same lyric, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
If a song hasn't got a strong chorus, it's not going to be a good song.
Yeah.
That's, of course, your tool. And then you get away with that by just having a massively good production, and everybody forgets about whether it's a song.
That's a really great point. And I love Tool, but I totally get that. The choral arrangement here in pre-chorus 2 is louder, especially with the higher voices, and this may also be augmented by a high synth that comes in here as well. It's hard to tell with the production. It's absolutely huge. And then out of pre-chorus 2, we get into chorus 2. Again, same instrumentation and lyrics as chorus 1, except we get an extra round at the back. When you say none better, Nymphetamine, the drums go back to double bass, and those dual harmony guitars get nice and loud there.
This is very Thin Lizzy, this bit, I would say.
Yeah. And again, when I read all of your influences and whatnot, and of course, Rob Caggiano, amazing guitar player. It didn't surprise me. I'm hearing these guitar harmony leads going on within this song, and it just makes so much sense. We get a extra round of lyrics here. You say sunsetter, nymphetamine, and in between that, it's this ooh, nymphetamine. I believe that's Liv's vocal there that comes back in, right?
I think so.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, it would be. Yeah, absolutely.
You got to start listening to your own songs more often, Dani. Jeez.
Yeah, but this song plenty. Trust.
No, and I have too. I love it. You said it. I can't tell you how many times I've heard this song walking across Reading and Leeds. Some sound guy will have it cranked up at noon. You're like, ah. But you say none better, nymphetamine, and then we get into post-chorus 2. And I love how the synths take over here, what those dual guitars are doing in the chorus, okay? They're not playing the same part, but they're playing the same space. So the guitars go away, now the synths come in super loud. It's absolutely brilliant. And the ending is that creepy, I'm calling it a toy piano here. It sounds very toyish at the end.
Yeah, so it's like a toy box. Yeah, absolutely. You know, we get like a little ballerina who spins.
Right.
And also, I like the fact you were talking about space. The song has got a lot of space because there are drop downs. If you notice with bands like Rammstein, they sound huge because, you know, guaranteed every song there'll be the verse or the pre-verse, pre-chorus, whatever, will drop down, and it will just be like the bass, the drums, and, you know, effects, which gives a massive amount for him to do his narrative. And scrubbed, you know, guitars and that, it would just be lost, and you just wouldn't be able to do it. It'd be like wrestling a bloody alligator. It made no sense. So I think that's why it works. It's big chords, drop downs, lots of space, and being very tenacious and with knowing what goes where.
Oh yeah. Well, you've you know, what really struck me after listening to this, I was like, man, this is a band, and again, this is going back 20, 21 years, but a band that has learned their craft well. I mean, this is a big production. There's a lot going on here, and just because you flood something with more guitars or more keyboards, as you know, doesn't, you know, exactly make the song more heavy. You have to be careful with how you mix it, and that toy piano, the very last thing we hear, it kind of gets detuned, like, and that's the last. Yeah. That's the last thing you hear. We talked about it a little bit at the top, and you know, before we break, I want to ask you: do you remember? You know, this was just another kind of song in the bunch, but do you remember going out and playing the song for the first time? And was it an immediate reaction?
I do remember playing it. I don't remember playing it for the very first time, but I do remember that obviously we'd released it as a single, and the video was really cool. It got really good reception. It was on like heavy rotation, and yeah, it was very divisive as a song, because like the song starts with gilded, I won't say the gilded C word, and a lot of it's got very sort of punk ethics to it. There's a lot of blast. It's a fast, ornate album, and a lot of very swift songs. So this was very in contrast to much of the record, although Absinthe with Faust and Gabrielle were quite slow as well. It really sort of stood out. And bearing in mind, like I said, it was part of a bigger song on the bulk of the album, which we kind of learned that idea from a musical. There's a musical called War of the Worlds where they do a similar thing, where they take the song out of context of the whole soundtrack, which is narrative, and it's like an opera almost. And it's very clever how they've done that, because they've extricated a song and put it in the charts, but then and it can be appreciated when you put it back in the album. It has narrative with it and stuff. So it's very clever how they managed to extricate that and make it a hit. And that's kind of the idea that we were trying to do. But like I say, it was very divisive because you got people wanting the heavier Cradle, and because of the drop downs, because of the fact that we had an additional vocalist as opposed to our resident female. And we did rectify that later by doing obviously another version with her and on live records as well. But yeah, there were people who loved it, and there were people who also thought it was a bit of a, for want of a better word, sellout.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you something. We're still talking about it 21 years later. So congratulations on your sellout movement moment, if that's what it was. And I mean that one musician to another, man. Congratulations on all of your success. And before we break, talk to me a little bit about the Screaming of the Valkyries. The new record is out, just came out a couple weeks ago.
Yes, it's our 14th album. Reviews are great for it. 3 singles thus far. Malignant Perfection, To Live Deliciously, which is slightly heavier, and then more recently, a few weeks back, White Hellebore. And yeah, I mean, the production on this is amazing as well, courtesy of, like I say, our new resident producer, Scott Atkins, who's been a partner for Cradle, almost a 7th member, really, for the last, 15 years. Post Rob, it was Andy Sneap for a little while, and Scott was actually Andy Sneap's understudy. So that's how the migration toward Scott happened. And bear in mind, when we stopped working with Rob, it was on Pornography, which was the next record, was the last one he worked with us on. And the only reason for the separation really there was because Rob joined Anthrax.
Yeah.
No, that's not true. He was already in Anthrax. And
joined Volbeat.
Anthrax and joined Volbeat. That was it.
Yeah, because that was later. And, Andy Sneap's trajectory reminds me a lot of Rob's. He was this producer, and now he's, playing with Judas Priest. And I love his productions too, man. His productions are killer.
Yeah, exactly. So that's how that's how that graduated from one person to the current. But yeah, the new album, I think it just encapsulates everything that Cradle stands for. It looks forward to the future. It's got killer production, but it also has a nod to the past. There's reminiscent tracks that, one could say, oh, this reminds you of Dusk in Her Embrace, or Cruelty and the Beast Midian, or dare I say, even Nymphetamine. As there's a few songs, including Non Omnis Moriar, the last single, White Hellebore, and even Malignant Perfection, where the female vocal has become almost like a duet. And we don't want to overdo that because that's not our thing. We do have a female vocalist, but I think it'd be very contrived that if every time you got to a chorus, it would be a duet. I think it'd just be like, oh, go, give us a rest now, Yeah. But I think we do it quite tastefully on the new record. And obviously that would draw comparisons with what we've been talking about and the song Nymphetamine.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, thank you for giving me the time of your afternoon. It's been an absolute pleasure, and hope to see you walking around a festival somewhere. I'll come bother you.
Okay, then by all means, and if we're on the same day, come and bother me. I would love it.
Hey everybody, the song you're hearing right now is To Live Deliciously, which is the opening track on the new Cradle album, The Screaming of the Valkyries. The album's out now, so go check it out. And don't go anywhere. We got lots more Chris DeMakes a Podcast coming right up after a few words from our sponsors.
What's up, everybody? I am Finn McKenty, host of the Punk Rock MBA podcast, part of the Sound Talent Media Podcast Network. My podcast is all about doing what you love for a living, and every week I sit down and talk to people who have done exactly that. For example, musicians like Tommy from Between the Buried and Me, Matt from Periphery, Lil Lotus and Shinigami, among many others, photographers, artists, designers, YouTubers like Glenn Fricker and Sarah Dici, and I unpack exactly how they got to where they are today with the goal of helping you do the same. So if that sounds cool, you can listen and subscribe at soundtalentmedia.com, and I'll see you there.
Every listener to Too Much Effing Perspective knows that my co-host Alan Keller is a music nerd, and right up there in his pantheon with the Beatles and Elvis Costello is The Clash. So Alan, it's one thing for you to be a nerd, but how did you rope in a cool guy, 311's Nick Hexum, into a full-on Clash geek fest on our show?
Well, first of all, Alex, it was your idea.
Oh, right.
Second, Nick actually jammed with The Clash's Joe Strummer in a supergroup that included Flea and Tom Morello.
Okay, well, there is that.
And finally, one member of The Clash cited This Is Spinal Tap, the reason our show even exists, as his favorite movie.
Which one?
Hey, if you want to find out, you got to listen to Too Much Effing Perspective. That's Too Much EFFING Perspective. The only podcast you crank up to 11.
Each week on the One Hit Thunder podcast, we take a look into a one-hit wonder band or artist to determine if they deserved more success or if they were lucky to even have a hit at all. With new episodes every Wednesday and special guests from the worlds of music and comedy, we always have nonstop fun, and maybe, if we're lucky, we discover some new favorite music. So if you love great songs and you often find yourself asking, whatever happened to that band? Check out One Hit Thunder wherever you get your podcasts.
This is the story of Whitney Houston,
This is the story of Kurt Cobain,
of George Michael, of Otis Redding, of Amy Winehouse, of Michael Hutchence, Bob Marley. This is the story of Prince.
It's a new podcast series
About how they died, why they died, and why we're still talking about them so long after.
It's like nothing you've ever heard before.
It's storytelling.
But it's more than that, because rock stars,
They tell us how we feel. They change our mood.
they change the clothes we wear, the people we hang out with.
The way we remember things.
It's them who give us those ludicrous moments, the ones where you...
Jumping around, singing your heart out, feeling understood.
And it's those moments we'll help you remember, the ones you're thinking about right now.
That feeling.
That feeling.
It's coming soon from Crowd Network.
Just search for Death of a Rock Star on your podcast app.
And subscribe now.
Hi, this is Chad Nicefield.
And this is Justin Press.
We're the host of Making Waves, the Shiprock podcast, a part of the Sound Talent Media Podcast Network. We're inviting you to sail away with us on an epic journey in musical enlightenment. Every week, we bring you only the best artists in rock music and discuss everything from the cruise, to the stage, to the saga of being a professional recording artist. We'll have lots of special guests along the way, so tune in every week.
Your stateroom is available every Monday morning, so welcome aboard.
Hey, this is Dewey Halpus, host of Peer Pleasure on the Sound Talent Media Podcast Network. Join me each week as I explore another long-form conversation with one of your favorite musicians, actors, comedians, or creatives. From Chino Moreno of the Deftones, John Gorley of Portugal the Man, to Fat Mike from NoFX and Ian MacKaye from Fugazi and Minor Threat, we go all over the map. From Fall Out Boy to Slayer, Peer Pleasure has it all. Check us out now on Sound Talent Media.
Hey, I'm Chris Fafalius, producer of Chris DeMakes a Podcast, and also host of One Hit Thunder. Each week on the One Hit Thunder podcast, we take a look into a one-hit wonder band or artist to determine if they deserved more success or if they were lucky to even have a hit at all. We've covered When in Rome, Jaquan, Shanice, Yellow, Squirrel Nut Zippers, Jesus Jones, Positive K, Mazzy Star, and hundreds more. With new episodes every Wednesday and special guests from the worlds of music and comedy, we always have nonstop fun, and maybe, if we're lucky, we discover some new favorite music. So if you love great songs and you often find yourself asking, whatever happened to that band? Check out One Hit Thunder wherever you get your podcasts.
As we near the end of the show, here's a band you might not know.
Welcome to this week's Band You Might Not Know. If you'd like your band to be considered for Chris DeMakes a Podcast, email your best song via MP3 only and a short bio to bandyoumightnotknow@gmail.com. This week's featured artist is Vermona Kids, a loud and earnest punk emo band from Poland, joining members from 3 different areas in the country and 2 different generations. Pretty cool. They have influences spanning from Sunny Day Real Estate to Dinosaur Jr. to Jimmy Eat World to Hot Rod Circuit. Their 3rd record, Keepsake, is out now. Here's a snippet of their song, Salt.
The Wrap with Chris and Chris.
Chris, I always love it when you get a chance to talk to someone from the metal world because you're so knowledgeable about it. Like, no one's going to stump you on some producer or some guitarist or anything like that. I always enjoy when you have a metal guest on the show.
I appreciate that, Chris. Yeah, I enjoy it. Musicians have much more in common with one another. Okay. And I really believe this. If I went to indigenous people in the middle of Brazil that, if they were to let me into their life, for a moment and come in and hear their music. And if we were able to communicate with one another, we'd have more in common about music than not. And, I mentioned it to Dani that metal musicians in particular get really kind of looked down upon and frowned on. But man, when you really read some of these lyrics, you reference Greg Graffin, which you had mentioned reading Dani's biography. You're like, oh, geez, he mentions Bad Religion as an influence.
You think Beavis and Butthead really made people think that metal musicians were dummies or something? Because I got to tell you, when you look at these lyrics, these are some of the most classically poetic of any song that we've covered on the show. They feel like they're gothic poetry or something.
They are. I mean, I couldn't write something like this. And if I did, it would come off as a parody. I've said it before. I can't write metaphorically like this. Okay. It's definitely an art form. I think metalheads, going back to what you were just saying, I think they get a bad rap. They're just kind of like the stoner kids shuffling along in high school. Oh, he's a burnout. He doesn't have anything going for him. But sometimes those introverts are a little smarter than we give them credit for, right?
That is right. I thought it was pretty funny that he said during the recording process that they found some magic mushrooms in a field. I think that's so funny because, I've never picked my own. I've never seen a mushroom and be like, I bet that's a magic mushroom. I'm just going to eat that. I've always been nervous about picking a mushroom and just eating it.
Yeah, well, considering that it blooms out of cow dung, I've never really been that adventurous about it either, Chris.
I love that. I love that he brought up, because this has come up, it probably came up in 10 episodes or more, and maybe you've even experienced, I think maybe you experienced this too, Chris, that the person who signed Cradle of Filth to the major label then left the label, which kind of left them in no man's land.
Well, yeah. And, he kind of made a offhand joke. He's like, they're going, okay, we deal with Jamiroquai. How are we going to deal with Cradle of Filth? What do we do with this band? Yeah. And that is truly the classic case. He was kind of joking about it, but it's so true. Not all of them. Okay. We had an A&R guy that really cared and eat, breathed, and slept music, but they're just, I've said it before, they're pencil pushers. They're bean counters. They count numbers, a lot of these guys, and hey, what's hot today? If it's not hot tomorrow or next week, then you're on to the next thing. And being a band like Cradle of Filth's tough too, because you have this vision, you set out, you have this image, etc. And now the label guy, who's just a pop guy essentially, who needs to get a song on the radio, how do you get stuff like this on the radio? It's very difficult.
It's very similar to the world of punk rock. There's a lot of similarities between metal and punk rock. A band like Cradle of Filth, they're always going to have a huge fan base, but I don't want to say that they couldn't be mainstream. I do think there are elements of Cradle of Filth sound that could appeal to a mass amount of people, and Dani even joked about like this song is like their sellout song. And I don't really hear that in this. This still feels very theatrical metal, which is not a very mainstream thing normally.
No, well, they did have the guest vocals by Liv Kristine, and that could be one thing. And the other thing, Chris, they got popular off this song. Okay, it was starting to get played on the radio and on TV, and you were hearing it walking across the festival grounds somewhere, as I mentioned to Dani. So the song became the thing, and perception's everything. I've had it. I'm sure you've had it. Being a musician, you pull up somewhere and you're playing to 1,000 people, and people assume that you're living in a mansion somewhere, and reality is not always what you think.
Yeah, it's also funny, Chris, that in the world of theatrical metal, if we want to call Cradle of Filth that, I think to a certain extent, you still find the same themes of songs that we've covered on this podcast of all kind of different styles. You still have the themes of love and loss and yearning and drugs, and these are universal themes that just go across, and the way you execute those themes, it's different. It's different the way that Cradle of Filth does it than some punk band or some ska band or some pop artist, but still, it's these same things that us in our human experience all share.
Absolutely, and I started off the episode by saying, these guys still make me feel like they're a newer band, because I was listening to metal since the early to mid 80s, and these guys came out about 10 years after, but they've been around forever. I feel they're one of the bands that do this style flawlessly. They've really gotten their sound together, and I'll tell you who else has gotten their sound together, Chris.
Is it you and I on the After Party podcast? We got our sound together, man.
we got our sound down. Go over to DeMakes.com. It's that's where we have our Patreon. You can help us out each month, and you do help us out. There's a lot of work goes into these episodes. We put a lot of time in, especially Chris. He edits me to death, makes me sound great. But for $5 a month, $10 a month, you can go get bonus episodes of the After Party and lots of fun stuff on our Patreon. So go check that out, DeMakes.com. And before we break, Chris, do you have a review ready to go?
I do. As Chris said, DeMakes.com is the most direct way you can allow us to continue making this show. And we appreciate the people that have done that. People like Richard Parker and Bobby Stoskoff and Emma Johnson and Rob Reed, a fellow Pittsburgher, and Isabel Hughes. These are a few of the people I feel like I interact with pretty regularly on the Chris DeMakes a Podcast Facebook page. But another way, Chris, that yes, like you said, that people can help us out is go leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And I got one for us today, Chris. I know you like hearing these reviews. We got a 5-star review from Mikey from Pasadena, who said, "Holy freaking cow, how have I not listened to this yet? I follow him on Instagram and knew about this but never listened. I saw that he did Santa Monica with Art from Everclear and then In This Diary with Chris Rowe. 2 minutes in, I was hooked. Chris is such an incredible host, and man, does he bring it. It's so obvious that he has put in a ton of thought, time, and effort into each song they talk about. It's so fun to geek out and notice things I knew and stuff I didn't know. If you like music and you like to really break down a song, this podcast is for you. I am so impressed with his research and his knowledge. Couldn't think of a better host or a better musical podcast. I've literally downloaded over half the episodes and don't want to listen to anything else. The only thing I don't like is that I wasn't listening from the beginning."
Well, that's awesome. Thank you for the kind review, Mikey from Pasadena. You're the second most famous Mikey from Pasadena. The first being, they called him Mikey in the band, Michael Anthony, the bass player from Van Halen, of course. From Pasadena. I had to throw that in, but Mikey, thank you.
How do you know that wasn't that Mikey from Pasadena? Maybe that was him.
Maybe. You think Michael Anthony from Van Halen likes the Ataris? He might. I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah, who knows? Thanks for those 5-star reviews. Thanks for everyone that listens and cares about this podcast. It's almost been 5 years. We're coming up on the 5-year anniversary. We're going to have a huge celebration. We don't know what it's going to be yet, but I'm sure it'll be huge. And want to thank this week's guest, Dani Filth, for sitting in with us. We'll catch you next week.
Hey friends, have you been loving Krista Makes a Podcast? Well, spread the love by leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Don't hesitate to share what you enjoy about the show in an actual written review on Apple Podcasts. Not only does it help more people discover us, but we often read reviews in the Wrap segment of the show. It's a quick, cost-free way to support us and takes just a minute of your time. Your reviews mean the world to us and help us keep the podcast thriving. Thank you for being a listener, and thank you for being a friend.
Hi, I'm Daniela Clark.
I'm Barbara Ann Wild.
And we are the Honest AF Show.
Our podcast is real, honest conversation with our celebrity friends and pros.
Covering our anything but average rock and roll lifestyles.
All while tackling the hell that is aging and the battle of beauty.
Oh yeah, nothing is off the table.
The Honest AF Show is available wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to us talking about our podcast for a minute.
What's the name of that podcast?
That's Axe to Grind, and right now you're going to be getting a little taste of it, right down to the shaky microphone and all.
And my name's Bob.
And my name's Patrick, and usually we're joined by Tom.
Tom's the best. Tom has a real grown-up job that requires him to be at work, but we talk about decidedly not so grown-up things like
hardcore music and things that people that like hardcore music tend to like.
So that could be the latest shows, revisiting classic material, talking about the new classics, all the little dorm room nonsense that you imagine from niche music podcasts that you either love, want to love, or hate.
Yeah, imagine all the emotions that you have towards a genre that has impacted your life, and then condense them down to an hour to 2 hours a week.
So triangulate your speakers, think about jumping off the bed, singing along, dancing like an idiot, and listen to Axe to Grind podcast.